There is one team that I think the Kansas City Chiefs should be very afraid of when it comes to them potentially three-peating this year. If there's any team that Kansas City would not want to face in the Super Bowl, it would be the Detroit Lions. Because let me tell you something about the Detroit Lions. Their head coach, Dan Campbell, he has a gambling addiction, a really bad gambling addiction. He does not care what down the distance it is on fourth down. He's going to go for it damn near every single time if he feels like the Detroit Lions can convert it. And with Dan Campbell just having a weird obsession with gambling and rolling the dice, in the fourth quarter, he's going to have the balls to go for it on a few fourth down attempts to win the game if Detroit faces Kansas City in the Super Bowl. That's what you have to do if you want to beat Kansas City. You can't be a team like Jim Harbaugh that wants to play smash mouth football and be somewhat conservative. If you want to beat Kansas City, you got to roll the dice. You got to be aggressive. You cannot allow them to win the game at any point, and that's something that Dan Campbell is not going to allow happen. If Dan Campbell loses to Kansas City, he's going to lose to Kansas City trying to beat that team, trying to put a knife in their heart. He's not going to lose to Kansas City by allowing Patrick Mahomes to get the ball last and just ripping Detroit's soul out of their body like we've seen Patrick Mahomes do to the San Francisco 49ers twice and so many other teams in the postseason like Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. The Detroit Lions have the DNA. They have the will that it takes to stop the Sith Lord, because that's what Patrick Mahomes is. This dude is Palpatine reincarnated. He just somehow happens to play quarterback in the NFL. He just cannot be beat. Other than Tom Brady and Joe Burrow, nobody else has been able to stop Patrick Mahomes in the postseason. But the Detroit Lions, they got a damn good shot at being able to do so, man. They got a really good offense, and I can't wait to see the matchup between Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator, versus Steve Spagnuolo, because they got a lot of creativity. If you want to beat Kansas City, you got to have a lot of unorthodox ways to, fool this defense. You got to have a lot of tricks in the hat, and they have to be able to work. You can't go up against Kansas City, get into the fourth quarter, and not have a few tricks up your sleeve, man. It takes everything to beat this team. Even when you think that you have this team beat, they still find a way to win. You can't give this team any room to escape out with a W, and that's something that Dan Campbell is not going to allow happen. When the Detroit Lions this past Thursday night went for it on 4th and inches instead of settling for the field goal and giving the Packers the opportunity to get the ball with one more shot at being able to send it to overtime or possibly win it, Dan Campbell said, hell no, we're going to go for it on 4th and inches, and we're going to eat the rest of this timeout off this clock, and we're going to walk out of here with the W. We're going to end this game on all terms, and that's the mentality that you got to have when you play Patrick Mahomes. The 49ers didn't want to do that in the Super Bowl. Remember when they went into overtime? Remember they were in that fourth down situation, and even Tony Romo kind of said, like, I don't know about settling for a field goal. I don't know if you want to give Patrick Mahomes the ball. You might just have to go ahead and go for this. And what did the 49ers do? They ignored what Tony Romo suggested. They kicked the field goal. Yeah, they made it, but then their defense was on the field. And when you have your defense on the field and Patrick Mahomes has the ball in his hands with a chance to win it, that's the equivalent to pretty much trying to win the lottery. You're praying to God that you can somewhat get a little bit lucky. Your defense can force a miraculous turnover or something, and you can stop Kansas City. That is not a good recipe for trying to beat the Chiefs. If you want to beat the Chiefs, you got to grab them by the throat, and you got to split their neck open. You got to be aggressive. You got to take all the chances in the world. If you want to beat Kansas City, you have to beat this team flat out. You're not going to beat this team with Mahomes having the ball last. Your offense needs to have the ball last. You have to dedicate, when you play Kansas City, that game being played on your terms. You can't allow Kansas City to play the game on their terms because, listen, Kansas City has no problem being in a shootout with you, being in a low-scoring defensive shootout with you. All they care is about Patrick Mahomes getting the ball last. That's the recipe, and you can't allow that to happen, and Dan Campbell is not going to allow that to happen, and that's why if there is a team that can stop the impending three-peat, although I don't believe anybody will be able to, that team that I trust the most are the Detroit Lions. They are the only team that looks battle-tested enough that has the will and the mental fortitude to be able to stop Patrick Mahomes because they're not scared of the big moments. They're not scared to have big balls. Say, you know what? F that. We're about to go for it on fourth down, and we're about to win this damn game. We're not about to let Patrick Mahomes rip our souls out. That's why I love Dan Campbell. That's why I love his aggressive play calling. That's why I love his will to want to go for it on fourth down, because he's not going to back down to Patrick Mahomes like how a lot of these teams tend to do. Hell, when the Buffalo Bills beat them a few weeks ago, they had to roll the dice. They had to go for it on fourth down. And you saw what happened. Patrick Mahomes didn't have an opportunity to win the game because Josh Allen won it. They go for it on fourth down, and not only do they get the first down in that situation, but Josh Allen also gets the game-winning touchdown. You have to beat Kansas City when you have the opportunity to do it with the ball in your hands on offense, because there's not a single defense in the history of the NFL that has been able to slow down Patrick Mahomes when he has an opportunity late in the fourth quarter to win the ball game, outside of Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots, and nobody has a Bill Belichick defensive mind on their staff. If you're going to stop Kansas City, your best chance at doing so is hoping that we get the Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl against this team, because that's the only franchise right now that seems to have what it takes to stop Patrick Mahomes. Outside of Dan Campbell and the Lions, I really can't trust anybody else to do so, because with how aggressive he is, the fact that he's willing to do whatever it takes to win, that's the kind of mindset that you have to have if you want to stop the Chiefs.